Ever wonder why some people seem to move through the world as if the universe itself bends around them? They speak once and others listen. They walk into a room and silence follows. Their presence demands respect, not through fear or fame, but through something deeper, something ancient. You can feel it in the air when they're near, and yet you can't quite name it. So what makes them different? What secret current of power runs through their veins that others can't seem to touch? It's not money, not charm, not luck. It's understanding of human nature, of control, of the game most people don't even realize they're playing. 500 years ago, Niccolò Machiavelli wrote The Prince not as a book of cruelty or deceit, but as a brutal mirror of reality. He didn't sugarcoat human behavior, he dissected it. He tore open the illusions people hide behind and revealed the one truth that still holds today. People respect strength, not softness. But strength, in Machiavelli's world, didn't mean muscle or dominance. It meant clarity. It meant control. It meant knowing when to appear kind and when to appear cold, because appearances, he said, are everything. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. And that's where most people lose their power. They spend their lives trying to prove what's inside instead of mastering what others see. They want to be understood, to be liked, to be accepted. But Machiavelli would laugh at this hunger for approval, because the moment you crave to be liked, you hand your power to those who can give or withhold it. Think about it. Every time you silence yourself to avoid conflict, you're teaching the world that your truth is negotiable. Every time you laugh off an insult or excuse someone's disrespect, you're training them to see you as harmless. And harmless people, no matter how kind, are never respected. Respect doesn't come from being nice. It comes from being necessary, from having boundaries that cut like steel and silence that bites harder than words. The ones who are respected aren't loud. They're deliberate. They speak less, but when they do, the world leans closer. Machiavelli said that a prince, meaning anyone who governs their own domain, must learn to be both the lion and the fox. The lion for strength, the fox for cunning. The fool tries to be only one. The weak try to be neither. But the wise know when to roar and when to disappear into the shadows. Look around you. How many people spend their lives performing, smiling when they're angry, nodding when they disagree? They think this keeps the peace, but all this really does is declare, I am safe to disrespect. They believe kindness will earn them love, but as Machiavelli warned, love is fickle. Fear, translated today as consequence, is steady. And no, he wasn't saying you must terrify others. He meant that respect is born from certainty. When people know what crossing you cost, they hesitate. When they know you'll let it slide, they don't. So the question becomes, do people hesitate before disrespecting you, or do they do it freely? That single answer will tell you everything about the power you hold or have given away. Let's get honest. You've probably mistaken approval for respect more times than you can count. You've told yourself that being agreeable is strength, that understanding people's feelings makes you noble. But tell me, what has it earned you? Peace or exhaustion? Because every time you bend your spine to keep others comfortable, you break a little piece of your own dignity. And one day, you wake up realizing that the people you worked hardest to please don't even see your effort? They just expect it. Machiavelli knew this centuries ago. He saw that people's loyalty wasn't to fairness, but to advantage. Men are ungrateful, fickle, false, not as cynicism, but as realism. He wanted us to stop expecting virtue from others and start mastering the art of control. Control begins with one simple rule. Stop trying to control others and start controlling the image you project. Because the world doesn't respond to your intentions, it responds to your presentation. You can have the purest heart in the world, but if you look uncertain, the world treats you as uncertain. You can be the smartest person in the room, but if you speak without conviction, no one listens. Respect is not given to the most deserving, it's given to the most decisive. That's why the ones who command attention don't always have the best ideas. They just look like they believe in them. They don't explain themselves into weakness. They state, pause, and let silence do the rest. Because silence, used well, is power distilled into its purest form. You've probably met someone like this, a person who doesn't chase your attention but somehow owns it. That's not charisma, that's control. They've mastered what Machiavelli called the appearance of virtue. They know that perception shapes reality. And here's the part that will sting. Most people are ruled not by their own values, but others' opinions. They want to be seen as good, decent, kind. But Machiavelli warned that a man who strives to be good in all matters must come to ruin among so many who are not good. Meaning, if you play by moral purity in an impure world, you lose, every time. The point isn't to become cruel, it's to become unmanipulatable. When someone cancels plans for the third time, don't argue, just stop making yourself available. When a colleague takes credit for your work, don't beg for acknowledgement. Let them take it once, then make sure it never happens again, silently, strategically. When someone disrespects your time, remove access, not with anger, but with precision. Because in the art of power, withdrawal is louder than confrontation. You see, Machiavelli believed that the greatest strength a person could have wasn't aggression, it was command. The ability to stand firm when others waver, to decide without asking for permission, to be polite but not pliable. The tragedy of modern life is that most people have forgotten what command looks like. They confuse dominance with strength, submission with kindness, and approval with peace. But real peace doesn't come from being agreeable, it comes from knowing that no one owns you. That's the heart of Machiavellian psychology, the freedom that comes when you stop letting other people define your worth. The people who seem untouchable, the ones who never get disrespected, never get overlooked, they're not cold, they're clear. They don't seek your attention, they don't need applause to feel alive. And that's what makes them magnetic. When you stop needing others to like you, they start respecting you. When you stop performing for approval, you start commanding attention. And in that moment, when your self-worth becomes self-sustaining, you finally understand the power Machiavelli was trying to give you. Because the real prince, the real leader, isn't someone who rules others. It's someone who rules themselves. Ever notice how the most powerful people in any room rarely reveal what they're thinking? They move like chess players, not gamblers. Every gesture, every silence, every glance, it all feels intentional, as if they've already mapped out the reactions of everyone around them. That's not coincidence. That's control. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He wrote that a leader must always appear predictable on the surface, but remain unreadable within. Because once people think you understand you, they learn how to disarm you. Once they can predict you, they can prepare for you. So the first rule of real power is simple. Never let anyone fully read your mind. Be clear in your purpose, but vague in your process. Let people see your direction, not your strategy. Because the moment they can anticipate your next move, you've already surrendered control. Think of it like this. When you react emotionally, you make your next move obvious. But when you respond calmly, you become a mystery. And mystery is the foundation of influence. People fear what they can't predict. They respect what they can't manipulate. Machiavelli's world was filled with princes who rose and fell not because they lacked armies, but because they lacked awareness. They believed that loyalty was love, that admiration meant safety, but admiration fades the moment advantage disappears. He warned, men are more ready to offend one who is beloved than one who is feared. Translated for today, people are more likely to betray someone who depends on affection than someone who commands respect through consequence. You see, fear, in Machiavelli's sense, wasn't about terror. It was about stability. When people know your boundaries, they move carefully. When they don't, they experiment. Think about your own life. The moments when you felt most disrespected didn't come from your enemies. They came from people who assumed you wouldn't do anything about it. They didn't fear losing you. They didn't fear your silence. Machiavelli would have said, that's not their fault. That's your mistake. Because every relationship, personal or professional, runs on invisible contracts. You teach people how to treat you, not through your words, but through what you tolerate. Every time you let something slide, you sign a silent agreement saying, you can do that again. But when you begin enforcing quiet consequences, distance, control, indifference, the entire dynamic shifts. The same people who once overlooked you begin to study you. The same voices that once talked over you now wait for your response. And the strange thing is, you don't even have to raise your voice. All you have to do is withdraw what they took for granted. Machiavelli believed that the power to punish doesn't always require action. Sometimes it's enough that people believe you could. He wrote, "A prince must not mind incurring the charge of cruelty when it is a question of keeping his subjects united and loyal." It sounds harsh, but underneath, it's not cruelty, it's clarity. The wise person understands that kindness without boundaries becomes chaos. To lead yourself and to lead others, you must be capable of saying no, firmly, consistently, without explanation, because explanation is where strength dissolves into debate. The most commanding people don't justify their decisions, they decide. That's what makes them powerful, not arrogance, but certainty. They don't look for validation, they move with quiet confidence that says, I've already chosen. And when someone challenges them, they don't fight back with emotion. They let their calmness expose the other person's instability. Because, as Machiavelli knew, the more composed you remain, the more others reveal themselves. Control is never about domination. It's about self-possession. The one who controls themselves controls the entire situation. But let's get honest, control isn't easy. It's forged in silence, in restraint, in learning to watch before reacting. Most people react instantly to disrespect, to rumors, to pain. They want to prove they're not weak, but in that very impulse, they reveal their weakness. The person who reacts fastest usually loses first. Machiavelli admired those who could delay, who could bide their time, who could pretend not to see while quietly adjusting the board. Because patience in the game of power is the sharpest weapon. And when the moment arrives, they act decisively, without hesitation and without remorse. That's how they win. He called this virtù, not virtue in the moral sense, but power through excellence, decisiveness, and adaptability. It's the ability to create order out of chaos through sheer will. But virtù is not something you inherit. It's something you carve into yourself through discipline, through observation, through knowing exactly when to bend and when to break. Because the world, as Machiavelli wrote, is governed not by justice, but by opportunity. And opportunity favors those who are prepared to act when others freeze. When you wait for the right moment, it's usually already gone. But when you train yourself to act, to move even when uncertain, you become unstoppable. That's the paradox Machiavelli understood, that uncertainty terrifies most people, but it's also where all power lives. The world belongs to those who can walk through uncertainty without trembling. You can't control outcomes. You can only control your stance. And the stance of a person who commands their reality is always calm, focused, unbothered. Machiavelli wrote that fortune, what we call luck, is like a river. When calm, you prepare. When it floods, you adapt. Those who stand still are destroyed. Those who move with it survive. The secret isn't in fighting chaos, but in flowing with it, redirecting its current toward your purpose. That's what every strong mind learns eventually. Control is not about domination, but direction. You don't force the storm, you steer through it. The people who fail are those who waste their time trying to make everyone happy, trying to make everything fair. But fairness is not the law of the world. Adaptability is. Machiavelli taught that the one who adapts fastest rules longest. The one who hesitates becomes the servant of those who don't. And maybe that's what you've been feeling lately. That quiet ache of knowing you've given away too much, that your energy has gone to explaining instead of executing, that your peace has been traded for people who never earned it. But there's still something in you, something that refuses to break. The part of you that knows it's time to reclaim control, not through anger, but through silence, not through revenge, but through detachment. Because when you stop reacting, you stop bleeding energy. And when you stop bleeding energy, people stop feeding off you. Machiavelli would say, now you're ready to rule. Not a kingdom, not people, but yourself. And that is where all real power begins, not in changing the world, but in mastering your own. Ever wonder why the world listens more to confidence than to truth? Why the person who appears powerful is treated better than the one who actually is? Machiavelli knew why, because perception is stronger than reality. He wrote that a ruler should strive to appear merciful, faithful, humane, honest, and religious, but be prepared to act against all of them if survival demands it. Because the world doesn't reward purity, it rewards results. That wasn't cynicism, it was clarity. He saw human nature without the romantic fog most people live in. He understood that people judge what they see, not what exists. You could be noble in heart, but if you appear weak, you'll be treated as prey. You could be honest in soul, but if you speak without presence, no one will believe you. So he taught that image is armor. In a world that thrives on illusion, your presentation becomes your protection. The calm voice, the steady eyes, the posture of composure. They don't just reflect strength, they create it. Because the human mind, fragile and impressionable, responds to symbols before substance. When people perceive that you know where you're going, they follow. When they sense doubt, they test you. The world doesn't ask, are you right? It asks, do you sound like you believe it? And this is where most lose power. Not through betrayal, but through transparency. They show too much. They confess before they've even been questioned. They crave understanding, not realizing that the need to be understood is the softest spot a manipulator can exploit. Machiavelli warned against this centuries ago. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. The wise person learns to separate what is true from what is shown. They live with layers, the inner reality only for themselves and the outer image shaped for the world. Not deceit, design. Because deception, when rooted in purpose, is strategy. It's the art of moving unseen in a world that judges too quickly. That's why those who rise highest are often misunderstood. They are not dishonest, they are disciplined. They know that showing everything is not honesty, it's exposure. You are not meant to be an open book. You are meant to be a locked manuscript, read only by those who have earned access. And the fewer who can read you, the safer your power becomes. Machiavelli understood this duality deeply. He knew that human beings are fickle. They love you when you serve their interests and turn on you when you stop. He saw entire empires collapse because leaders believed loyalty was permanent. But loyalty is conditional. It survives only when it benefits both sides. He wrote that a prince must learn how not to be good when the situation demands it, because goodness without strength is an invitation to be used. Let that sink in. Being good is easy. Being good while powerful is rare. And the world confuses the two. It celebrates moral words while punishing moral weakness. The man who refuses to play the game is devoured by those who do. The woman who speaks truth without strategy is drowned out by noise. It's not fair, but it's real. So Machiavelli taught, learn the rules of the world you live in, not the one you wish existed. And when you learn them, don't complain, use them. You see, the great danger isn't being ruthless. The great danger is being righteous without awareness. Because those who believe only in goodness often become tools in the hands of those who don't. He warned that those who try to be entirely good in a world that isn't will be ruined. And history has proved him right again and again. But here's the paradox. Even Machiavelli knew that pure cruelty destroys itself. Power without restraint collapses. So he didn't teach endless manipulation. He taught balance. The prince must know when to be feared and when to show mercy, when to speak and when to stay silent, when to strike and when to disappear. Because timing is everything. The fool acts out of impulse. The wise act out of necessity. And those who master timing master life. They don't rush to prove themselves. They wait until silence becomes unbearable. Then they speak, and everyone listens. You've seen it before. The person who doesn't argue in chaos, but ends every discussion with one calm sentence that no one can answer. That's not luck, that's Machiavellian poise. To reach that level, you must detach from the crowd's rhythm. Most people move with noise, gossip, anger, validation. The powerful move with stillness. Machiavelli saw that stillness not as weakness, but as the ultimate form of control. Because the one who is silent is never exposed. The one who listens learns more than the one who talks. He wrote that the wise ruler must act like both the lion and the fox, strong enough to command respect, clever enough to see the traps. And that duality is what defines every great mind, the ability to be both bold and calculating, fierce and gentle, visible and invisible. But the key is knowing which side to show and when. You cannot be all light and expect to survive among shadows. You cannot be all shadow and expect to be followed. You must learn to dance between them. And that dance, that balance of grace and power, is what separates the ordinary from the unforgettable. It's not about pretending to be someone else. It's about shaping who you already are into someone untouchable. Because here's the truth most will never accept. People don't follow goodness, they follow gravity. They follow whoever makes them feel smaller in the presence of something greater. Not out of fear, but out of awe. When you embody calm power, the world rearranges itself around you. Conversations shift, eyes linger, energy bends. That's what Machiavelli meant when he spoke of commanding respect. It wasn't about threats or violence, it was about presence, about the quiet confidence that says, I don't need to prove anything. And once you reach that point, you no longer chase loyalty, it comes to you. Because loyalty born from fear fades when the fear disappears. But loyalty born from respect lasts as long as you remain unshaken. The strongest people in history didn't force devotion, they inspired it through clarity, consistency, and quiet confidence. Machiavelli saw this truth 500 years ago, and it still rules the world today. You don't have to wear a crown to be a prince. You only have to master yourself like one. And self-mastery begins with the decision to never again let emotion dictate your value. You can love deeply, you can care fiercely, But you must always remain the one who decides, not the one who depends. Because dependence breeds weakness, and weakness invites control. And once you understand that, once you learn to move through life as both lion and fox, no one can touch your peace again. Because peace, real peace, doesn't come from safety. It comes from strength. And strength is not loud. It doesn't roar. It doesn't demand attention. It simply is. It walks into a room and changes the air. It looks into chaos and doesn't flinch. It loses people, opportunities, and illusions, and remains unbroken. That is Machiavellian peace, the kind that cannot be taken, the kind that makes others bow even when they don't understand why. Ever wonder why the greatest betrayals always come from the ones closest to you? Why it's not the stranger who breaks you, but the hand you once held? Machiavelli understood that betrayal isn't rare, it's inevitable. Because loyalty, as he saw it, is built on convenience. People remain loyal until the balance of benefit shifts. The moment they see more gain in leaving than in staying, they will. And that's not evil, that's nature. You see, he didn't hate humanity, he simply saw it without illusion. He wrote that a ruler who depends on others' loyalty walks on borrowed ground, but the one who builds power within themselves, through skill, awareness, and adaptability, stands on stone. So he warned, never depend on affection for your survival. Build alliances, yes. Inspire devotion, yes. But never give anyone the power to destroy your peace by withdrawing theirs. Because people forget what you said, they forget what you gave, but they never forget what you allowed. And when they see that you can live without them, when your energy no longer bends to their moods, they begin to respect what they once took for granted. That is the moment of quiet rebirth. Not the loud, cinematic kind filled with revenge, but the silent one. The day you stop explaining, stop chasing, stop convincing. The day you look at yourself and realize you no longer need to prove you're good, you only need to be effective. That's the beginning of what Machiavelli called virtù, the ability to shape destiny through will. He wrote of princes who were not born royal, but carved their thrones from chaos. Men like Caesar Borgia, who built power from nothing but vision, ruthlessness, and timing. Machiavelli admired him not for cruelty, but for clarity, for understanding that fortune favors the one who acts, even in uncertainty. And that's the mistake most people make. They wait. They wait for permission, for timing, for peace. But life doesn't reward waiting. Life rewards momentum. The world doesn't pause for hesitation. It bends to decisiveness. Machiavelli said fortune is like a river, wild, destructive, uncontrollable. You can't stop it, but you can build walls and channels to guide it. The same flood that drowns one man carries another to power. The difference is not fate, it's preparation. Because those who are ready to act when opportunity appears seem lucky, but they're not lucky, they're aware. And awareness is everything. Most people live as victims of emotion. They mistake comfort for peace, noise for success, agreement for truth. But you can't see the game if you're playing blind. That's why Machiavelli taught that detachment isn't coldness, it's vision. When you step back from emotion, the whole board becomes visible. You start seeing patterns. The people who flatter you, the ones who compete silently, the ones who fear your calm, they all reveal themselves eventually. He said a wise ruler must learn to see the world as it is, not as it should be. Because the moment you wish things were different, you've already given reality power over you. So don't wish, watch. Don't react, observe. And when you move, move with precision. The modern world confuses movement with progress,
But Machiavelli would say, the one who moves constantly is often running in circles. Real movement is deliberate, almost invisible, until it becomes undeniable. You can't control the world, but you can make it move around your steadiness. Because steadiness is rare, it's magnetic. In a society addicted to panic, the calm mind becomes a beacon. People start to orbit around those who do not flinch, around those who seem to know something they don't. That's the aura of a true ruler, not power taken, but power earned through presence. And it starts within you. Every day you wake up, you face the same choice: to rule your mind or to be ruled by it, to let fear dictate your actions or to let discipline do it instead. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must build his own foundations because borrowed strength collapses when tested. Your foundation is your discipline, the things you do when no one is watching. It's your control over your tongue, your emotions, your impulses. It's the ability to delay gratification, to sit in silence while others rush to speak. It's the restraint to keep your plans hidden until they can no longer be stopped. That is how real power feels, not loud, but inevitable. Because by the time people notice what you're doing, it's already too late to stop you. And that's not cruelty, that's mastery. Machiavelli knew that legacy belongs to those who understand timing, who act when others hesitate, who adapt when others complain. He believed that every generation needs a new kind of prince, not a monarch, but a mind that commands itself. So maybe that's what you are meant to become, not a follower of rules, not a seeker of approval, but a ruler of self. Someone who knows when to speak and when to vanish. Someone who understands that silence can be sharper than words, and patience deadlier than revenge. Someone who moves with intent so pure that even the storms start to bow. Because when you master yourself, the world stops feeling random. Things begin to fall into place, not because life got easier, but because you became harder to move. That's what Machiavelli wanted you to learn, that power is not something you take from others, it's something you stop giving away. He saw through the illusions of morality and fame, the false light of popularity. He understood that most people are trapped not by chains, but by opinions. They fear judgment more than failure, rejection more than regret. But freedom, real freedom, comes only when you no longer fear being misunderstood. When you stop defending your depth to shallow minds. When you stop lowering your voice to make others comfortable. Because that's when you rise above them, not in arrogance, but in evolution. You become the lion and the fox, strong enough to lead, clever enough to survive. You become untouchable, not because no one tries to hurt you, but nothing they do breaks you anymore. And maybe that's what it means to be Machiavellian in spirit, not cruel, not manipulative, but aware. Aware of human nature, aware of power, aware of yourself. You stop expecting loyalty from the untested. You stop expecting understanding from the unwise. You stop expecting fairness from the world, and you build your own justice instead. You stop chasing and start attracting. Stop proving and start embodying. Until one day people look at you and can't explain why you command the room, why your words carry weight, why your silence demands attention. And they'll call it charisma, luck, mystery. But you'll know it's none of those. It's simply mastery, built quietly, patiently, relentlessly. That's what Machiavelli saw centuries ago. That's what few ever truly understand. That in the end, there are two kinds of people, those who are moved by the world and those who move it. And the difference is not birth, nor privilege, nor chance. The difference is will. So the next time you feel lost, the next time you feel betrayed, unseen, underestimated, remember this. Every empire began in silence. Every revolution began with one mind deciding to no longer be ruled by fear. You are not powerless, you are simply unpracticed. And if you can learn to see the world as Machiavelli did, not through the lens of emotion, but through the clarity of purpose, you'll realize the truth. The crown was never something to be given, it was always something to be claimed.